Hello, I'm Darren. We have breaking news. More than 600,000 Americans have kidney failure. While the number of people with kidney failure is enormous, the number of people with its precursor, chronic kidney disease, is staggering. An estimated 31 million Americans, or about 10% of the US population. Diabetes and hypertension cause 2/3 of all cases of kidney disease. 1 out of every 3 Americans is at risk for kidney disease, and kidney disease is now among the top 10 causes of death in the United States. In addition, 9 out of 10 people with early to moderate kidney disease don't know they have it, putting their health in jeopardy. Are you at risk? For more information, contact urbankidneyalliance.org. The life you save may be yours.
Good evening. Welcome to Mental Health for Me. I'm Steve Belcher.
Hi, and I'm Sade Cutler.
Hey, what's going on, Sade? What you was in a thought?
You know, this brain always going.
I know. It's always going, especially on mental health.
Yes. It's so much to think about, so much to talk about, so much to cover. So.
Oh, absolutely. Good evening, everyone. Again, welcome to Mental Health for Me. Tonight, we're going to continue our discussion on depression. Last week, we had a really good topic. We talked about CKD and mental health, and we talked about a little bit about anxiety, the grieving process.
Yes.
We talked about shock and denial, anger, fear, anxiety. I mean, we talked about so much last week. It was a great show. So, guys, if you didn't see that show last week, go to Mental Health and Me Facebook page and look for that video. What do you think about last week, Sade?
I think that it was excellent. I received a lot of positive feedback on the information, on the things that we covered. So I think it was a pretty good show.
Absolutely. And we have Dawn Kurkowski. She's a transplant warrior. She says she knows a lot about depression. She's a therapist for crisis mental health issue.
Excellent.
Yeah, so definitely, Dawn, we're going to definitely bring you on one day. So be ready.
Yes.
So, excuse me, Sade. So this week we're going to kind of get into what depression is and a little bit about the anxiety disorders. So with depression, I mean, we mentioned it last week. It says depression is a medical condition which people experience a significantly low mood for a long period of time. Now, is there a, like when they say a long time, is there any time length on one can be depressed?
So it can be anywhere from 2 weeks all the way up to years. Sometimes people are depressed for years. That's when you get more into the major depression type of diagnosis. So it definitely can range. It can be short term, it can be situational, it can be seasonal, and it can definitely be long term as well. So yes.
Wow. Because they say while everyone feels down from time to time, people with depression experience a persistent feeling of sadness without reason that cannot be shaken and that affects their capacity to get on with their daily lives. In addition to a deep sadness, other symptoms of depression may include, and it goes into one, feeling worried for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
Two, having difficulty concentrating on tasks or decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Three, losing interest in things which the person used to enjoy doing. Four, moving or talking slowly. Five, sleeping badly or sleeping excessively and still feeling tired. Six, either losing or gaining weight and appetite. Seven, losing interest in sex. And then 8, thinking about killing oneself, feeling hopelessness, guilty, and that life is not worth living. Now, with that, is that like the later stages of depression, or it can happen in the beginning, or you know, in the middle, or any time during that depression?
It can happen at any time. And oftentimes, people may not even realize that they have been depressed. It's typically when it's reaching a point or a level where they may not know themselves, or they realize that they may have lost weight and they haven't tried. They realize that they've gained weight and they don't know how or why. So sometimes when people are diagnosed with depression, it's typically been going on for a long time. So that's one of the key factors of what therapists ask when we're assessed. Well, how long have you been feeling this way? And it makes people think like, oh, wait a minute. Now that I think about it, I've been feeling like this all along or for a long time. Or sometimes you can pinpoint it back to certain things that you used to do. Some people may say, well, I didn't even know I was depressed, but I realized that I didn't do my normal routine of getting up and going on my walk that I typically would do, or cleaning up my house like I usually would do on Sundays. So those things are some of the factors that play into depression as well. So it changes a lot of your activities of daily life, the things that you would normally do. I can't hear you, Steve.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Uh-huh.
Excuse me. Let me ask you, dyspnea. Have you heard of that?
Dysthymia.
How you spell it?
Dysthymia.
Okay, dysthymia. Yes, they said it's a milder but still serious form of depression, which can go on for years. Those affected may be able to function in their day-to-day life, but have a persistent low mood, even saying they just don't know what it feels like to be happy. Now, if you have somebody dysthymia that has that, and then they get hit with kidney failure or renal disease, I mean, wouldn't that be almost like a double whammy?
Yeah, of course, because like when you talked about different levels of depression, if someone's always already been dealing with a depressed mood for a long time, and then they get hit with a diagnosis, those are the things that sometimes take people over the edge, where we get into what you mentioned about the suicidal ideations, the homicidal ideations, the totally malfunctioning, like being dysfunctional, not being able to concentrate, not even being able to work. So people that have dealt with some form of depressed mood, that are diagnosed with a chronic illness, sometimes that's all they need to push them over.
Okay. We got a comment in the section that I want to put on the screen, and I just want to get your thoughts on it, because this person, I mean, it's from a spiritual perspective, but if someone's so far in depression, they may not can't see this. But Brittany Dew says, let's spread more kindness and happiness in these times that is needed. If you rearrange the letters in depression, you'll get I press on. Meaning your current situation is not your final destination. Yes, even during this COVID-19, people are feeling different emotions, but why do we let our emotions get us? So shape your thoughts upon Jesus, and he will provide for you an encouragement. Your life is shaped by your thoughts. Instead of trying to control your circumstances, control your thoughts. Now, I mean, I can understand that message, but for one who's really going through something, I mean, could they get through, with that message to say, well, let me, pray and turn it over to Jesus to get me through this?
So there is a such thing as spiritual counseling. There are spiritual counselors. Spirituality is a form of counseling as well. So the answer to that is yes. When, like the person that was on the screen was saying, talking about your thoughts, a lot of times spirituality aligns with a lot of the practices that we use. Let's just say, for instance, CBT is a big thing that's used with depression. It's called cognitive behavioral therapy. People use those techniques. So it definitely talks about how your thoughts affect how you feel, and how you feel affects what you do and or your behaviors. So when
Mm-hmm.
it comes to the spiritual sense, and what it seems like she's saying is to not try to control the circumstances, because even if you come into therapy and you are getting we're doing a theoretical orientation type evidence-based practice with you, it still goes back to the fact that you cannot control your circumstances. So you do have to rely on your thoughts and change how you think. And then when we talk about spirituality, one of the things that if we talk about a Christian perspective, God talks about you casting your burdens on him and redirecting your focus to that. So in the same sense, you're still redirecting your focus on other things and trying to change your mindset about what it, changing your perspective about what it is that you're going through. Because the truth is, there are some chronic illnesses that people will have for the rest of their life because it is a chronic illness. And if you don't change the way you think about it, if you don't change your mindset, if you don't change your perspective on it, the chances are you will remain in a depressed state for a long time that could get worse.
Wow. Wow. And now also, could one be going through depression and not even know it? Say, for instance, maybe they start waking up in the middle of the night, can't go back to sleep, and then they go to work, they're irritable, they start losing interest, maybe in stuff they used to do. Can depression be settled, meaning they could be going through it and not even know it?
Absolutely. You ever had a day where you just feel off? It's not
Many days.
yes, it's not your typical baseline. It's like something's not quite right. And some people pass it off. It's like, oh, it's not a big deal. Maybe I'll get over it. And then you find yourself feeling that same way the next day. And then you find yourself feeling that way over the whole week. And the next thing you know, you start telling yourself, oh, I just got to get out of it. So you're telling yourself that you have to get out of it, but you're not actually doing any work to get out of it. And next thing you know, you're even deeper in. And then the insomnia, like you said, staying up at night comes in, and then you're irritable. And that's when people start to pay attention to things because it's changing their activities of daily life. And then by then you are so out of touch with what's going on with yourself. You're like, how did I get here? And that's when a lot of people end up crashing in their therapy. Just like we talk about people crashing in on dialysis and things like that. Sometimes people crash into therapy and what we call is a crisis. They're in a crisis mode. And when you talk to people with crisis that are in crisis, it can be something that happened right then and there, or sometimes it can be something that is built up inside of them and they're ready to explode.
Wow. Oh yeah. Yeah, I had those many times in the past. especially working
Really?
especially working in dialysis at the Vita. I had many episodes like that. Wow.
Really?
Now,
Really?
what should one, when they start feeling these symptoms that we talked about, for instance, feeling worried for no reason, having difficulty concentrating on tasks or decisions, losing interest in things which one used to enjoy, moving or talking slowly, even losing losing interest in sex. How can one change that around? Because especially, let me just say this, losing interest in sex, because we know you have couples that deal with chronic disease, maybe one or both of the couple, married or not married. And if they don't realize that they're depressed but start to lose interest in sex, meaning they may not come on to their partner or vice versa. And that may be looked at as, oh, maybe they're cheating on me or something like that because they're not showing me any attention, or I'm not getting any sex or anything like that. So how can that be addressed if they don't know that, one, they may be going through depression, and two, that losing interest in sex is part of that, is a symptom of depression?
So the first thing you have to explore on your own is, what is it that I'm feeling? Do I not feel sexually aroused? Like, in terms of, is it a medical thing going on? Like, is it that I can't, like I said, get aroused, or not to be vulgar, but a man can't
Sure.
get an erection, or a woman, her juices aren't flowing, or things like that. So you medically try to see what that part is. And if it's not really related to that, then you start to look at how you feel. Like, why is it that I don't want to have sex? Am I constantly thinking about my diagnosis? Do I feel like, do I feel unwanted? Do I have self-esteem issues? Physically, do I not feel well? Like, there are so many things that are connected with not wanting to have sex. So that's when you start to try to explore your reason for not wanting to engage. Sometimes people are just frustrated about everything that's going on, and they're tired and they don't want to have sex. So you try to work through those things to see exactly what it is. Or if it's, like I said, like, could be physical pain too, and you try to work through those things. So getting to the root of why you feel like that is a big part of it. As far as like the spouse goes, it is easy for someone to maybe think that the person is cheating, because sometimes it's something that you don't even talk about. So if you are used to having sex with your mate and your mate just comes home and you're not even aware that your mate is depressed because they put on this facade and this face like everything is okay, which a lot of us do, then you could easily think that they're having sex with someone else because you didn't even know that they were depressed, or you didn't take notice that their habits or their activities or the things that they do in their waking life are different. So
Mm-hmm.
that's when we get into the miscommunications about things and trying to be open. It's hard to tell your mate that that you don't feel sexy, or you're not in the mood.
Sure, because you probably don't want to let them down. But let me ask you this: do you think maybe it's advantageous for couples, maybe if one is diagnosed, let's just say with renal disease, and start dialysis? Do you think if one is married or in a maybe relationship that couples therapy should be maybe done right in the beginning stages to let people know, or well, couples know what you could possibly expect from having a chronic disease such as kidney disease, especially if somebody gets hit with this out of the blue and don't even know that they even had kidney disease?
I most certainly think that is like awesome to do. I look at that as like a premarital type of situation. I really think that it is helpful because I've had people that have been diagnosed with chronic illness and their mates have left them. And it was because the mate felt that it was too much for them and they had no idea what to expect. They knew that their mate was sick. They knew that they may have had to get on dialysis or get chemo and things like that, but they weren't quite mentally prepared to deal with all the things that come along with it. So getting couples counseling when a person is diagnosed or before a person is even at that stage to get on dialysis or uh, anything like that, I think that is absolutely like excellent. It's almost like a preventative measure. Honestly, it's good.
So how would one start that? If it should happen, but it don't happen, and you have all these people being diagnosed every year, and I'm sure a lot of people are married. Female, male. If they don't know about this, it almost seems like we're headed down the road of many people being undiagnosed depressed.
Right. Getting the word out there is so important. It's really about disseminating the information to get it out there because like I'm a therapist that's willing, ready, and able. Like if I had couples to come to me that were in the process of going through the different stages of kidney disease and they needed to talk, I would be able to do sessions with them. That would be completely fine. But it's really a matter of people being aware of the options that they have. And if doctors would get on board with it and look at that dynamic of it as a part of kidney failure or chronic disease, that would be excellent. So if doctors even implemented it when they know that their patients are dealing with kidney disease and other chronic illnesses that can happen, and they say, hey, we want to refer you to a therapist, or even educate them that we are out there, that we are there, just like people that get the bariatric surgeries, they have to get counseling. It's kind of implemented into what they do. So if people look at kidney disease like that, other chronic illnesses like that, that would be excellent if they implemented it in what they did. Because we're out there, we're capable, we're ready. It's just a lot of people don't understand the road that they're about to embark on when they're diagnosed with something like this.
Oh my God, you make so much sense. Even when you talked about bariatric weight loss and they got to go to counseling, and even though that's a small, any procedure is risky procedure, and it's a lot to go with it because you got people who do the bariatric surgery that gain the weight back because it's a mind thing. You got to change the behavior, but It would seem like you would think that when one does get diagnosed with kidney disease, that there should be some type of counseling, almost like a prerequisite, because even with transplant, you got to go for a psych evaluation. So even though that's a big risk of donating your organ to someone, but even with chronic kidney disease, this is a lifetime disease. And if you're married and if your spouse doesn't understand what's happening, if you got kids and, a life together, like you said, you have someone that left their spouse. Now, what if someone who's been in a relationship for a long time, built things up, and then this happened and they leave? I mean, it's
hard.
Yeah.
Even on the side with the men, a lot of men that have CKD or that are on dialysis experience erectile dysfunction.
Oh, absolutely.
And that affects their self-esteem. It's really hard for a lot of them to come out and talk about it, but it's so common that they might feel isolated about it. But it's like, no, we understand. Like, I'm a therapist that understands. I know that this is something that you all battle. Like, come so we can help, so we can work through this with you. There are men with their wives that have left them because of the erectile dysfunction, or they have had a lot of issues in their marriages and things like that because of that piece of it. So that's a whole nother dynamic that you have to help them work through, because it's difficult. Because you might have a healthy mate that is ready, willing, and able to have sex, and they're used to it, and then you physically can't. Like you really are having some issues that are beyond your control. Your mind may want to. Your mind is ready. You want your wife. You want your husband, but the body won't allow it to happen. That is a hard thing to deal with when your mind is somewhere and your body is not.
Wow. Made me go back to that song, "Your mind is here with me, but your body's on the other side of town." Right. You heard that record before?
I know that one, but the lyric sounds very
No, it says, "Your mind is here with me, but your body's on the other side of town."
Who's sing that?
Be messing around. It's one of these oldie but goodies.
All right, I'm gonna have to check. I like some oldie but goodies, Steve. So I'm gonna have to check and see.
Yeah.
Check it
your
out.
Body's here. It's your body here with me, but your mind is on the other side of town.
Okay, I'm gonna have to check it out.
So you physically there with somebody, but you're thinking about somebody else. But wow. All right. So look, I do know with men, and when it comes to erectile dysfunction, and medicine plays a big part. Now, let me speak on myself. There was a medication I took one time called Flomax that is a prostate medication that's supposed to shrink the prostate. And when I was taking it a while back, I didn't like the sexual side effects of that medication. It wasn't erectile dysfunction or anything like that, but it did have some sexual side effects that I wasn't happy about. And I told the doctor, and he was like, well, there wasn't a anything else that I can use for that situation. So what I did, and I don't suggest anyone else to do it, but I spaced that medicine out. So
spaced it out? Like, what you mean?
Well, so it was recommended that I took the medicine each night before I go to bed.
Okay.
So what I did, I may took the medicine one day and not take it again for maybe 2 days later.
Okay.
And then maybe after that first day, I wouldn't experience the sexual side effects.
Okay.
And so I spaced it out like that. So I can still take it. It can still work. But at the same time, I didn't experience the sexual side effects of the medicine.
Doesn't that show the lengths of how important sex can be to some people?
Hell yeah.
And it's the truth. Like, that's the truth. Sometimes people don't want to talk about it because it can be very uncomfortable, but it shows the length. Some people don't take that medicine because they don't like the side effects, and it does hurt them later, like diabetes medication. Some people, some men experience erectile dysfunction from high blood pressure medicine, diabetes medication, which is so crazy because that medication that they are using to try to help with that diagnosis sometimes can directly be linked to them ending up having to be on dialysis if they don't take it as well. So
Exactly.
a lot, when you get the younger ones talking about that, a lot of them say that's why they don't take the medication when they got diabetes or high blood pressure, because it messes with their erections.
Yeah, and it could do more harm than good.
Yeah.
Wow. So let's talk a little bit about anxiety, Sade. And so the next question says, what are anxiety disorders? And it says, a person with an anxiety disorder feels distressingly worried a lot of the time for no apparent reason, interfering with their ability to function and take pleasure in life. Then it says there are several types of anxiety disorder. One, generalized anxiety disorder is characterized by a worry that is persistent, excessive, or unrealistic. It can be about almost anything: money, work, health, relationships, or being harmed. Now, let's talk about that one for a moment, because it seemed like that one is a common anxiety disorder, generalized. Because sometimes I feel anxiety if, say, for instance, I may call my house, my parents' house, and being that my parents are older in their 90s, they may not answer the phone. And it could be, my mom could be in the kitchen and my dad could be sitting down there. They could maybe not hear the phone, but I'm worrying because nobody's picking up the phone, and I'm calling back 2 and 3 times till somebody pick up the phone. Is that what you would consider unrealistic? Worrying?
That can qualify in that arena because it's generalized. So anything can go into the generalized anxiety disorder. Yes, there are some people that are just worried about money, but they have money in the bank. They have good paying jobs. No job threat is anywhere around, but they just constantly worry about not having enough. That can be a form of anxiety. There are some people that just drive and they're always worried that they could get into an accident. Never have been in an accident, never have been reckless in their driving, don't drink, don't even have any contributing factors that would cause those things to happen, but yet it's just a worry that that goes on and on and on with them. So the answer is anything can fall into that generalized anxiety, not wanting to go outside because you're scared that something just could happen if you leave your house. It is a wide array of anxieties that are out there.
I mean, now that you say that, I can't imagine if somebody may have this disorder and then they're diagnosed with kidney disease. Would that exacerbate the symptoms? Say, for instance, someone being told that they got to start dialysis. Would that increase their anxiety disorder to maybe possibly they could be excessively thinking how this treatment is going to go, what's going to be expected? And if they're thinking like that, could that also be one of the causes for patients to, as they say, quote, quote, be non-compliant with treatment, maybe not coming to treatment or missing dialysis because of the anxiety of going into the facility?
Yes, you made a few good points with that one. Absolutely, it could exacerbate the anxiety that a person has. It also can transition to a more specific anxiety, because you kind of know exactly what's causing their anxiety and what they feel. The other thing I wanted to touch base on was when you talked about going to treatment. Some people have anxiety about treatment because they are fearful of needles. They don't want to see blood, those type of things. So that can be a debilitating anxiety because the treatment of dialysis is needed for them. So that anxiety could be so much that it just makes you do nothing. Like sometimes you can get so overwhelmed that you just do nothing, like that fight, flight, or freeze type of thing. So you get there, you want to do your dialysis treatment, you want to go forward and do what you're supposed to do, but the anxiety and the anxiousness of just getting on a machine, or just seeing the needles, or just being in the facility itself, just makes you have a panic attack. Just the same as people with, and that also goes into the phobias. Some people have those phobias, and that contributes to the anxiety. Like you ever meet people that are claustrophobic, they can't get on elevators, they don't like closed spaces and things like that. Not even that anything has happened to them before or anything is happening, they just cannot deal with tight spaces. So anxiety is huge. It's huge.
I know. I can imagine someone starting outpatient hemodialysis for the first time. I can't imagine the anxiety they must go through, and then maybe the repetitive thinking of what is to be expected coming into a new facility for the first time and never experienced this before. So they go on and say the second of the several types of anxiety disorder is social anxiety disorder, which involves intense anxiety associated with social situations. For example, someone affected may become nauseous with fear at the thought of attending a work function or a family gathering. So I can imagine, again, if someone deals with social anxiety disorder, going to treatment, being in a confined space with maybe 30, 40 other patients sitting there receiving treatment and people walking back and forth, such as the staff. Could this be a problem with someone affected with social anxiety disorder?
Absolutely. Just going in a facility, you have these really large facilities. You have a lot of people that are talking to you. You have the nurses, you have the techs, you have people coming in and out, getting on the machines, getting off the machines. So the social anxiety is definitely is there. Some facilities are much bigger and larger than others. I think sometimes they run like, you can have a facility with like what, 30 chairs at a time. The look of it sometimes can be anxiety provoking to those people that are dealing with that. Sometimes even just being in a waiting room with other people, although they are patients that are going to get on the machine as well, can cause anxiety.
Wow. And all this is going on, Sade, and it's not even addressed. I mean, the literature talks about it. We're here talking. Look at this. I mean, chronic kidney disease and mental health, but if they know it's this big and common, why isn't it addressed like almost like prophylactically before someone starts, or when they start, to kind of address this as a prerequisite? I just don't know, Sade.
The thing about, like, so they are required, like social workers like myself, we are required, like we said, by CMS to be there. The company utilizes us in a different way. Social workers push back so much about us not having time to really do therapy or counsel or be able to give the patients that type of support. So that's when it's needed to refer them out. And then sometimes the patients themselves are so, sometimes they're not ready. And sometimes a lot, they just have that stigma we talked about on the last show about mental health. So they kind of quite they kind of think that it's something that they might be able to control themselves. They might tell themselves like, okay, I'm just feeling like this because I just got this diagnosis and it's going to go away. It's going to get better. And sometimes it can. Sometimes it can get better for some people. And sometimes it does not. So the biggest thing is trying to get the referrals for patients to get therapy that they need. Or like you said, the prophylactic. I think what you said about having them counseling sessions before they even get to that stage is like key. Even when they're just going to the nephrologist, like that should be a point of like, hey, we're monitoring your blood levels. We see your GAF is going down. You might be transitioning to stage 4, blah, blah, blah. We think that you just need to get some counseling at this point. I think that that would be perfect. It would be perfect because the dialysis social workers have a lot that they on their plate that they do, and that is just the way that the company serves or have them serve. Like a lot of times with the companies, they have social workers doing stuff with insurance, health insurance, and things like that. It's important for the patient, but our specialty is mental health. We deal with that part, but they make us serve in different capacities. So sometimes we aren't
Mm-hmm.
able to do what we need to do for the patient or what we want to do with the patient because their focus is something different. You know, for-profit companies don't operate that. When you get into the nonprofit organizations and things like that, they may have a time set aside for a patient to give, for a social worker to give their patients some therapy. But when you're dealing with those big companies with the for-profit, there is no time to do that. They have you doing everything but that.
Yeah, like planning like a Christmas party or playing bingo, which is nothing wrong with that,
The patients love some bingo, though. I gotta say that.
huh?
I said the patients do be loving some bingo.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, Look, the last disorder, which is kind of common that people know about with this anxiety disorders, is impulsive OCD,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
obsessive compulsive disorder. Make people feel compelled to act or think in a certain way to avoid irrational feelings of anxiety. For example, someone with a clean house may become convinced that it is dirty. They might react by obsessively cleaning the kitchen, making them late for work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that goes back to like sometimes when you have a patient that could be on a machine and they're constantly like just like maybe they just keep looking at their access, thinking something's wrong with it. Everything's going fine, the machine's not going off, but they're just fearful that something could happen, so they're just constantly looking, or they feel like it's just not clean. Now sometimes you have shown that it might not be clean.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
but let's just say it's been wiped down and it's been checked before, and sometimes they just don't feel easy about it. They just don't feel comfortable about it. They just keep looking at the same things over and over again. That can be something that's more of a compulsive stuff. Basically, it could be actually clean. Everything could be running right this time, but they can't rationalize that. It still seems like something is off, something that needs to continuously be checked, although it's been checked before.
Mm. So, and let me ask you this before we move on. Could say if someone just started dialysis and they're real, they far as we don't know them, but at home they nice and everything, but when they come to dialysis, they could be mean spirited. Could that? I know it could be a lot of things, but basically what I'm trying to say is, could someone be depressed and it can affect, I know it can affect their mood to cause them to have uh, anger outbursts at staff that's treating them, like the
Mhm.
same people that's taking care of them, that are trying to do the best they can to take care of that patient, kind of like be the brunt of their frustration.
Yes. So what we would call that is defense mechanisms. So when we talk about defense mechanisms, it's when a person may lash out or act a certain way because they aren't feeling well or because of their thoughts or how they feel. So certainly, or if they are just fearful, sometimes people are scared. They don't want people to know that they're scared, so they're nasty, they're mean, they cause havoc. It's not that that's who they really are inside. It's just a defense mechanism. When you're going into a place that you may not want to be, and you're still trying to process that grief that we talked about, that grieving the life that you used to live, you don't feel like being nice. So that's when I tell people sometimes don't get mad at the person, get mad at the disease, because um, when a person is fighting a disease or they're dealing with mental health issues and they're diagnosed with something, that's what they're supposed to do. If they're diagnosed with anxiety, depression, anger, all of those things, that's expected. That's what they do. So when people get upset, they're like, why are they acting like that? It's like they're acting like what they're diagnosed with. It's just like with somebody having insomnia. It's like, why are they up all late? They have insomnia. That's why. So
Well,
that, mhm.
no, I'm sorry, Charlotte, but what I was going to say, if that's the case, you have a lot. Now, this is very common in clinics. That happen, patient outbursts, or say the staff does something to a patient, like infiltrate or whatever. Outburst from the patient, staff comes back and they button heads, and next thing you know, both of them argue on the floor, and now the patient is the one that's being kind of blamed, because now they may go into the outburst or go into the rights and responsibilities of a patient and their behavior. With that being said, why do you think companies don't maybe do a mental health class with their staff so they can kind of empathize with patients with chronic diseases?
I don't think it's enough pressure on them. I don't think that it's enough pressure on people to do what they're supposed to do. Like you take companies like DaVita and well, we know DaVita is one of the largest ones. I think they're the second largest. So
Yes.
they have their facilities run kind of like a franchise type of model thing. It's not really a franchise, but it's ran like that.
And
So you have your facility administrator that's at the top. So when you complain or you tell them certain things, ultimately it's up to them to make that decision. Although DaVita is in charge and they should do certain things, they allow the facility administrators to have so much control and power. And sometimes they don't even really truly care about those things. They're worried about the numbers. Like it's so much pressure on money and to make sure they're watching the the
the
labor and
yeah, the labor
income.
and supplies.
Yeah, and all of that stuff, that they're not dealing with the actual issues at hand. Absolutely, the staff should be trained on that and held accountable for those things. So if it does, usually when stuff is going on at the bottom, it's typically in the head. So that's why I always tell people like, when you see things going on at the bottom and it's not quite right, people want to go after the little people. You kind of need to start focusing on the bigger people, because why is your facility running like this? Why is it
Mhm.
that people feel comfortable where they can have an argument with someone, and then when somebody responds, the person that responds gets reprimanded? Why is it that your people are not doing what they are supposed to do and you aren't holding your people accountable? But those are the things that a lot of these big for-profit companies don't take in consideration, or honestly someone don't care about you. If there is nothing new under the sun about a lot of the things that we are telling these people or saying about it, it's not that pressure applied like it needs to be. Once stuff hit the fan and things come out, all of a sudden they do all the things that they should have done before. That's how it
Mhm.
used to happen, instead of just doing the right thing right now.
No, you're right. Absolutely. And we say that all the time in dialysis, especially when they have state inspections and the clinic's not even ready. And when the state comes in, they scrambling around
And like
trying to cover and clean stuff up at the last minute. But one thing you said that was really important, that you said DaVita is ran like a franchise, and you're absolutely right. John Daly did a special comedian on HBO, and Kent Theory, who used to be CEO of DaVita, he compared running DaVita. He would do the same thing if he was running Taco Bell. Okay, so he compared a dialysis company.
So he really did compare it to like a franchise.
Right. He compared it. He said if this was Taco Bell, he would still be running it the same way. And so basically what we're trying to say is these guys don't really care about, health in the sense to where profits precedes patients. And the thing is, they had this slogan out, and it's not to beat DaVita up, but this just to show you the propaganda and the insensitivity of this company when you see all these lawsuits. But they have a new slogan now that says a community first, a company second. And I have to disagree with that, because how can you be a community first when your profits are astronomical and you're taking away a lot of amenities and services that you once used to have? Like, for instance, they used to have pillowcases. They used to have sheets for the chairs. Some places used to have big alcohol pads. All this stuff they used to have that was comfort to the patients and very convenient, they all of a sudden stopped having it because it took away from the profit, or as you may say, the the profit from that facility. So it's a big thing that a lot of people, I guess, don't understand, and you wouldn't understand if you receiving treatment there and you thinking that they're supposed to be, giving you the best service possible, but here you're having all these little fights, and you're just trying to look after yourself, but when you complain, you're being labeled as a troublemaker.
And a lot of times some people don't even know what to do. They acknowledge that they feel something, they know something's off, they don't feel right, but they just feel stuck. They feel like, oh, I might as well just deal with this. It's nothing really that I can do. And sometimes it's like beating a dead horse. Like you say stuff and then it lands on deaf ears.
And just couple of other things before I move on, but they talk about other forms of anxiety disorder include panic disorders and phobia. And one thing you touched about when you said phobia, they says unreasonable or excessive fears of everyday situations or of needles, for example. And you said that, but that's true.
Yeah.
And I've seen it happen where a patient one day came in and I was making my rounds, and she said, I'm glad that you're here today, because when I got up and was getting ready for dialysis, I was hoping that you would be here because I feel safe when you're here. It's like, they were like, when you're not here, it seems like things are chaotic and disarray, but when you're here, it's like I have no worries at all. And even if I experienced someone having issues with putting the needle in, and this was maybe some years back when I didn't realize why, but I could be in the back or be doing something else, and a person could have an issue with putting the needle in or with the patient, and the patient would call and ask for me, and I would get mad. No, I mean, I'm just being honest, because I would be so overworked that I'd be like, damn, why can't you just do it? Meaning the staff, you
Mhm.
know, you're a tech or a nurse, you've been doing this for such a long time. And I had to realize that I had to step outside of how I was feeling and put the patients first.
Mhm.
And I pushed through that, but that used to really burn me up
I'm
when
sure it
people
was
get
frustrating.
me to do their work or their job, you know, but the patient may have asked them, and I can't turn them down and say no.
Mm, right, right. And you know, although it can be frustrating on that end, being the actual worker or the person that has to labor and do those things, it brings such comfort to the patients. It's like the patients are looking to have someone take care of them. They're scared. They don't want to risk anything happening, and they're just comfortable with you. So sometimes it can overwhelm us as the person that's given or doing all the work, but for them it just means the world to them. Like they get a sense of relief, like you said, just knowing that you're there. Like sometimes people just to hear my voice or know that I'm in the building, sometimes they feel like, okay, I know everything is going to go smoothly with you here. I know you're going to handle these things. And that's because you do what you're supposed to do. People can sense that. Like when there used to be people that didn't do what they're supposed to do, or mean to the patients or lazy and things like that, although they might not speak up, people know, they sense it, they feel it in their
Mm,
spirit. Something's just off with it. Like you ever just be around someone and you like, I don't want that person to work on me. And they may not have done anything to you. You just feel it in your gut that it's something off with them. And then as time go on, you look and you watch them and you see that they're lazy and they just gonna have tail do what they're supposed to do instead of doing it right. You know, those are the
right,
things you be like, I just don't want to deal with them. It's nothing against the person, but you see them for what they are. So if you
mm,
wanna have tail do stuff with me, I don't want you dealing with my blood. I don't want you sticking me. I don't want you giving me life-saving treatment because you might feel lazy and not do what you're supposed to do. Those ones that don't want to wash their hands like they're supposed to do, or just simple stuff, wipe the stuff down. And I know that the pressure comes down from these companies to do stuff, and I totally will be the first to say I understand that aspect of it. But sometimes people are just lazy. So even if it was an opportunity to do right, they weren't going to do right anyway. It just
no,
wasn't what they were supposed
you're
to.
right. You're absolutely right. Wow, you said some powerful stuff there.
It's crazy, Steve.
Oh yeah, and that's what we try to get people to understand when they're dealing with these large size companies, that if people just go to work and do what they're supposed to do, uh, you know, things would probably be a lot more better. Um,
They shouldn't sleep on like the small mom and pop shops. A lot of people see, matter of fact, I'm just gonna do a little analogy. You know,
Go ahead.
like it was a time when people was talking about, oh, you know, these brands like the name brand foods and the cereals and like the breads and all of these things are like the best. And then people might have an issue with going to like the cheaper places like Aldi's and things like that. But when you start to look at the labels, the ingredients, sometimes you realize like, this small label or non-brand thing that we know of is actually more healthy with real ingredients versus this big brand. It's the same with companies. Some companies are so huge that they don't deliver quality anymore. They want quantity. Quantity is not always good. And
Hmm.
when people see these big places plastered everywhere, they believe they're going to get top notch service when that's not always the case. Sometimes the mom and pop shops give you the best service, the best treatment, the best healing, the best support that you ever can get compared to these huge companies.
You're right. You're right. I was just sitting here thinking about a lot of the small companies I work with, and they were the best. It's just some of them, when it came to pay, they couldn't match the top
The bigger
companies. But
companies.
let me tell you, if you go to DeVito Fresenius, you damn sure going to work for that money. bar none. You're going to work for that money. Now, Sade, I know we're about out of time, but the one thing that I wanted to say was you can have some patients that have that reserve about someone, and when they finally let them work on them, they may mess up and then kind of reaffirming that person's belief.
Oh, yes. And then that's when you get the earful, like, I knew I shouldn't have let you touch me. I knew I shouldn't have let you work on me. I knew something was wrong. Sometimes a patient can be understanding if it was an honest mistake. But if it's something that they've been watching and they've been thinking that you were lazy and you just wasn't going to do what you were supposed to do from the get-go, that is like that solid proof and validation that they needed to just ream you out. And like you said, sometimes when they mess up and they already had some reservations about that person working on them, they won't never let or want that person to touch them again.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. They know you ain't going to never touch them again as long as they're in that clinic. They may speak
Right.
to you and be nice, but when it comes time, and then, because that happened to me one time, but what can change that is if, say, for instance, if there's a situation where there's no other way and
Right.
you have to do that, then you have to be really conscious of what you're doing and mindful and comfort that patient, whatever you're doing, reassuring them that
Easing that anxiety.
is
Easing their anxiety.
exactly. So this last kind of topic we discuss, and then next week we'll go into how depression, anxiety can affect a person. But it says, why can depression, anxiety disorder be difficult to recognize sometimes? Then it goes into saying some of the physical symptoms of depression and anxiety, such as feeling tired, poor sleep, and loss of appetite, may be similar to those caused by CKD or its treatment. When the focus is on treating the kidney disease, symptoms of depression, anxiety may not be recognized. So do we see that a lot? That we're trying to, patient may be feeling tired, poor sleep, loss of appetite, and they may look at it and say, oh, maybe you're not getting enough dialysis, you got a catheter, or your blood not getting clean. In essence, it could be something totally opposite and not kidney disease. It could be anxiety or depression.
That is absolutely true. Some symptoms like that could be medically induced, and then sometimes it can be missed because, let's just say, they're tired because they were anemic and their anemia is corrected. They're not anemic, but they're still tired. So then you're still searching for medical diagnosis to explain what's going on when it's really a mental thing that's going on. So depression and anxiety can cause actual physical symptoms. So that's why it's so important to assess the patients and be aware of these things so that you can make sure that they are getting the assessments that they need or the treatment that they need. A lot of times, like you said, fatigue comes in with depression. That's common. Sometimes body aches come in from depression, loss of appetite, um, um, increase in appetite. All of those are the type of physical things that manifest from depression and anxiety. Those body aches and migraines can come from depression. So when you're treating a person medically and you see that it's not, if you've done everything that you can do with the medical piece, you do have to start to check for the mental piece too. That's why it's so important for people to take mental health providers like social workers serious, because we are very, very important in the role of diagnosis and chronic illness. Sometimes I've had people that have had illnesses and we went over all of that medical stuff. We talked about those things. We talked about things with their primary care doctor. And we're like, oh no, this is a mental thing. And once they get stable, they'd be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that you were right. And another thing is the diet. Like some people are so depressed, and when they do eat, they're eating all the wrong foods and they feel horrible. I am a big advocate on your food affects your mood. So sometimes if you're feeling down and you go eat like a big cheeseburger, some fries, and a milkshake, it doesn't help you feel better. You feel sluggish. And feeling sluggish on top of feeling depressed, on top of having anxiety, is not going to make you your mood any better.
Wow. That was huge. Because I can imagine some people being depressed and, eat because of that. And get the itis.
Yes. And then you wake up and you're upset because you're like, I didn't get anything accomplished today. And then you're going back into a further depression. Like, it's a show. What's one of the shows? I think it's he's named Fat Bastard. It's a horrible name. But he was on, I think it's like Austin Powers, one of them shows. He was like, I eat because I'm unhappy, and I'm unhappy because I eat. Right. So it's like that's how it is in the real world when sometimes you're going through different things. You may eat wanting to feel good, like once I eat this, this is gonna be good. Then once you eat it, you feel even worse, and you still haven't dealt with the root cause of what your depression is. You haven't got any help for what your anxiety is. You haven't done anything on the mental part of your health. You just dealing with the physical part of your health. You're not dealing with the mental. Even if your physical is corrected, it doesn't mean that your mental is going to be corrected. And just because your mental is corrected, it doesn't mean that your physical is going to be corrected. That's why it's important to pay equal attention to both.
Wow, you done coming out with both guns blazing. And so it also says symptoms of depression or anxiety may also seem hard to describe. Fear of being dismissed as neurotic or not listened to can make people reluctant to discuss symptoms. It can take courage to talk openly about how you feel and to ask for help.
Write that one down. That is a huge problem. Like I can go on and on about that one, Steve. Like we probably gonna have to get into that in the next show.
Okay.
When people are so dismissive of people that have anxiety or have fears or are talking about feeling down, that it is they do a great disservice to that population because they further the stigma behind mental health. Like sometimes people go to the doctors and they're like, oh, I'm just not feeling well, I feel down or whatever. And they just totally disregard it, like as if the person never said it. Or they might give them their own advice instead of telling them, oh, you may need to see a mental health provider. And it does not have to be a person that has gone into a deep depression before you can refer them to a mental health provider. You can refer your patient to a mental health provider, even if they just tell you that they're feeling a little off, just to get an assessment. Just like when a person is not feeling well or they feel a little off kilter and they go to the doctor to get an assessment to see what the doctor says, send your people to get a mental health evaluation so they can see what us, the mental health provider, has to say about their mental health. That's what we do. That's what we are there for.
Wow. Very impactful. Very impactful. And last, it talks about, it says, it goes back to what you were saying. Come see the social worker. It says, discuss these feelings with a social worker or doctor. They can help to sort out whether it is your physical illness, depression, or anxiety that is responsible for them.
Absolutely.
And you just mentioned that prior.
Yes.
It wasn't like we sat before the show in the green room and discussed this.
No.
You had no clue what I was reading from, and you talked about exactly what they said on the paper.
I love mental health, Steve.
Absolutely, man. And that's what I'm saying. Guys, if you're dealing with a chronic illness, it doesn't matter if you're off kilter or you're feeling a little low. you gotta hook up with a social worker, somebody like Sharday Cutler or someone like Dawn Kirkowski or I think it's another one out there, Barbara Landu. But you gotta search out for social workers because they are experienced to talk about these type of situations. And so last but not least, it says, sometimes we might disregard how we feel because we think that intense sadness or worry are simply to be expected with chronic kidney disease. This is not true. Just because someone has kidney disease doesn't mean they will experience actual depression or an anxiety disorder. And so that's it for that part of the lesson. But do you just touch on that when it says sometimes we might disregard how we feel because we think that intense sadness or worry are simply to be expected with CKD. This is not true. Just because someone has kidney disease doesn't mean they will experience actual depression or anxiety disorder. So just because you have CKD doesn't mean you're going to experience depression and anxiety, correct?
That's absolutely true. People write people off based on what they're dealing with sometimes. So they'll say, oh, well, you're depressed because of this. You have anxiety because of that. That's what it is. It's that comes along with a territory type of situation when that's not true. It's not to say that you won't ever have spurts or episodes of depression. That can always be there. That's with anybody, with anything. But that doesn't have to be your baseline, your constant. No, absolutely not. That does not have to be. There are times where you can function absolutely normal with your normal baseline if you're getting the help and the support you need. And sometimes you can get on the medications to help if it's a little bit more severe, just to get things just kind of like get some things in order or help stabilize some things just a tad bit. And that's another stigma that's out there with the medication. Some people don't push medication, which is totally fine. I'm not the first one to go to that, but sometimes the chemical balance can be a little off, and you just need a little bit of a push to help get you over that hump. And sometimes you can go on it for maybe like 3 months and then you'll be fine. You're getting the therapy that you need from a mental health provider, and you're taking the meds if that is necessary to help you, and then you have a baseline. It is not that you are supposed to feel down, you are supposed to feel anxious, you are supposed to feel sad, you are supposed to have continuous insomnia just because you have a chronic illness. That is not true. It is false. Dismantle that belief.
Wow, that was powerful, Sharday. Man, it's been a great hour. Hey, Miss Verna, how you doing? Thanks for saying hello. I appreciate you. Miss Verna had a kidney transplant, and
congratulations.
she's in Alabama. This was, I believe, last year, and her story is awesome. They had pictures of her on billboards and everything, and a donor stepped up that saw one of her billboards. Well, she met the person but didn't know. They surprised her and introduced her to the donor before she had the surgery. It was a very awesome story.
Aww, that's awesome.
Yeah. Oh, hey. Thanks a lot, Maxwell. Appreciate you, bro.
Oh,
hey, cuz. Yeah, this is my cousin. So appreciate you, bro, for chiming in. But Sharday, this was an awesome show. And again, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule. And before we leave, just share with people what you do outside of this show, please.
Okay. So I am a licensed clinical social worker. My organization is My Empowering Impact, and we provide therapy. We provide coaching for those people that kind of just need something to get them over the hump, but not quite ready for therapy. We also provide continuing education credits for licensed social workers to remain licensed. We also give supervision to social workers that are graduates out of school. And we just launched this part called the Alm Shop, which is just a shop for needy, vulnerable, poor people to get items that is completely for free. You just have to pay the shipping fee. So that's what we're doing. And like I said, it's called My Empowering Impact. We do also have a questions part on the website. So like if you have any questions about anything, or you just want to inquire about some things, just send us a message and we will get back to you.
Oh, that's awesome. And I had to tell y'all guys, once I get my workman's comp settlement, I'm definitely going to see Sade to get my mental health intact. I'm telling you guys,
right?
If you need a social worker, I'm just saying, if you're in the Baltimore area, DC,
and Virginia,
reach out to Sade if you would like some counseling or therapy. There's nothing wrong with it. Very easy, outgoing person Sade is, and I'm sure she will make you feel very comfortable in your session. So, and I'm definitely going to take advantage of the situation. I mean, it's nothing wrong, like you said. I mean, it's nothing wrong with mental health counseling. You don't even have to be depressed or have anxiety. But if you have periods of feeling low and you're trying to understand yourself, I'd rather talk to someone who I don't want to say doesn't really know me, but doesn't have a stake in my life other than making sure that my mental health is well, instead of going to a friend or someone that you try to discuss what's going on with you and they say, oh man, shake that ass off, or it ain't this or ain't that. You know, somebody unprofessional that can lead you down the wrong road of information. So please, hey, Miss Denby, I saw your post, and yeah, it was right with me too, with your husband. And Mr. Maxwell, he wants to know, do you work with veterans?
Yes, I sure do.
Oh, that's awesome. So guys, again, you're not going to get any kind of show like this anywhere else on social media other than Urban Health Outreach Media. So we see you guys. Let me see. Wait a minute. They're trying to set me up for dialysis or a kidney transplant, and your information has been very comforting. I think it's Steve for having Sade on your show. I just think you're forgiving us. You are forgiving us to the. What did I say? Heads up.
Giving us a heads up.
Okay. Yeah. Absolutely. And so, guys, join us next week. We're on Wednesday. We just did tonight because I have something planned for tomorrow evening. But we're on every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Huh?
I said live.
Yeah, absolutely. Live every Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on Urban Health Outreach Media. Any last words you want to say, Sade, before we go about mental health? I mean, was it Mental Health Day this week or last week?
It was last week. Yes, it was last week. And I just put a little post up. If people want to follow me on Instagram too, I do motivational quotes and things daily. So I am on Instagram. You can follow me at m.e.impact, and that is my Instagram.
Say that one more time.
So it's me impact, m.e.impact, and when you follow me, you'll see daily motivational, encouraging quotes and memes.
Okay. I'm gonna type that right quick. So I was trying to type it and I couldn't do it.
You got it. So let me repeat it again.
So m.e.i. Impact.
Yeah.
All right. Let me put it up there. So that is Sade's.
It's an I. M-E.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm trying to type too fast. All right. Get that up there. All right. Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
So that's Instagram. So guys, if you want to reach out to this wonderful social worker, clinical social worker, licensed at that, please, you can reach her on Instagram. You can reach her on Facebook at Sade Cutler. And she also have a Facebook page, My Empowering Impact as well.
Yeah.
So Sade, again, this has been a great show. Thank you so much for adding to the discussion like always, and look forward to next week so we can possibly close out depression with how depression, anxiety can affect you, looking after yourself, and maintaining relationships with family, and all other kind of stuff. Recognize changes in yourself. We got a lot to talk about.
Yes. Okay. Well, I'll be ready, and I guess we'll reconvene next week.
All right, Sade. Take care. Right. God bless. We talk to you soon.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Bye.
All right. Guys, again, this was an awesome show. I thank you for tuning in, checking out My Empowering Impact for mental health and me. We hope you got something out of this show tonight, and we look forward to coming back next week with some great information. Thank you guys for watching. God bless, and we see you soon. Have a great evening, and again, stay blessed and encouraged. Peace.